Ooh, ooh, yeah. Ooh, da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. There it is. Okay. When you hear that double-double, you know it means trouble. In all the best ways. Only ever in all the best ways. Oh my gosh, is it Saturday? Is it Saturday yet? It's January 6th. We're gonna storm the fretboard today, folks. Ew. Subtle humor alert. I'm thrilled to be here. We're just letting the track warm it up. We're keeping that starting soon screen up there. We're kind of stoked. We're kind of like pumped for a big day. Not only that, I was out in California. So now I sound like this. I was in San Diego, bro. Just catching some tasty waves. And no joke, the crazy swell down in California was the real deal. Hello, guitar friend. Happy Saturday, January 6th, 2024. I'm getting my bells and whistles and everything somewhat sort of kind of squared away here. Gonna turn off that. There's a lot going on. I hope it's a lot of good stuff going on in your world. That's what I'm excited about. Is all the good stuff in this new year. We're going to talk about your guitar playing today, guitar friend. But before we get into the talk, and let's start with the rockin'. So, if you're watching this, whether it's live on the aforementioned date of January 6, 2024, or you want to just jam with us right now sometime in the future, let's warm up over this vamp. It's just vamping and vamping and vamping over an F major, okay? And to help guide us through this warm up, maybe I'll hit the right button. Let's see. That did nothing, and that did something. Okay, so don't get overwhelmed. We'll get to all the other stuff. I just want you to look at this. I'll turn that off. Actually, I'll change this because we're now into GWAD number 42. We're sneaking in, cranking up all the way towards 50, and it's exciting. So just look at that fretboard there that's past my lava lamp. Oh, there's so much to go over here, guitar friend. Okay, so I got a new lava lamp from the Christmas time. DJ, Happy New Year. Look, DJ, I got a lava lamp. It was a white elephant with my girlfriend and her family up in Ohio, and look what I came home with. I was brutal. I was stealing, and I made sure I was like, this is meant for me. F. That's an F triad. So look at that fretboard that is, the first fretboard there that has F major triads there. I want you to grab your guitar and just play any F major you like. Just get acquainted with the sound of an F major over this cool vibey vamp. And look, with those pink dots there, you can see between the white dots are the Fs. So everywhere you see a white dot, that's another F on the fretboard. So those are the roots, right? So you could play a full bar chord right there, the classic F bar chord right there. You could break it up into the top three strings. Top being strings 1, 2, 3, the skinny strings. That's a triad right there. The next three strings down, strings 2, 3, and 4. It's another triad. You might know all this. If you got it and you're familiar with it, you can move around and just sort of try some different strumming patterns. This is the way we just kind of get our feet wet. When you warm up, it's good to just kind of give yourself a way for your brain to transition from thinking, task-oriented, adulting stuff, and just get back into guitar mode. It's good for your brain. So right now I'm up on where those blue dots are. So there's the white dot right there. So that's that F right there. That's a root. There's another F right there. And this is sort of coming from that bar chord that looks like that A shape, up to the F. And the reason that I love these triads so much is because right there, when I was just sort of noodling and playing some fills, in my head, I'm rooted in the root, The root is literally like where I root down, that's my anchor. Then I can see the shape of the triad or the full bar chord. And then I have this sort of like vocabulary of fills and things that come with it. These sort of like little phrases and sentences. So keep playing, just sort of feeling out the different F shapes. So I've got this new way of looking at triads where I consider it, one way of looking at it is the classic sort of stacked way. And stacked would be like, if we go back to that pink set of notes there, we've got our classic bar chord, and inside of it there's a stack of triads. There's strings 1, 2, 3, strings 2, 3, 4, and in this case you get another triad with the next strings down. So that's strings 3, 4, and 5. So that's a good little location to get a bunch of information. Location information. And then, just like I did up here, you've got all these fills. And if you don't have those fills yet, you'll start to see that if you put in the hard work to learn like a major pentatonic scale, you suddenly will see, oh, that overlaps obviously with the bar chord. And then you've got these little pieces that actually fit better over a jam track or a band playing, because you're not always going to want to be stuck with, like, when you see an F chord, play an entire F. You want to just sort of, yeah, Wade, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, we touched these triads a million different times. The idea is that you kind of keep the momentum going, and then one day it'll sort of click in a new way, and maybe that day is today. I'm going to stop the track for a bit just to let our ears cool off. So, at any point, chime in, ask me some questions. Just say how it's going. How's your new year kicking off so far? That is the theme of today. We're talking about the battle plan, your battle plan for 2024. And I got so excited I created a slideshow. It's the most boring slideshow you've ever seen, but it's just talking points. And at some point, I'm going to sort of walk through. I wrote essentially what is the script for an upcoming YouTube video, but it's really, I think it's a pretty good like walkthrough of how my brain works and how I would love to, for myself, learn faster, because there's always more things that I'm learning. And a lot of times, you can probably relate, it feels like there's a bit of like, well, I think I've sort of done this before, going around in circles. Like, I don't know, did I get like 5% better at this thing that I just spent 2 weeks on? So the trick, as we'll get into it, is just like having some way of noticing where you're putting your time. If your time and energy is like a pie chart, we all have that feeling, whether it's in our outside life or in guitar life. It's like, where is all this time and energy going? It's sort of going somewhere, but I don't know if it's sort of leaking out the sides or if it's like, boom, landing in these buckets where we can sort of build some progress. You might hear the crackling of little Tony boy back there. I think that's yeah, Tony boy. Get out of his way. He's chomping on a bully stick. The doggy's got new beds. One of those is what Tony is on right there. There's another one just like it. Lolly is off that way, sort of like hiding until some other time where she'll come out and probably start chewing on that bully stick after Tony's done with it. So, Lava Lamp, that's also new, obviously. If you're just joining us, pretty excited. Tim Taylor, howdy, how are you? New Koba, how are you? Knew you were off to a great start. Haven't bought a new guitar yet. Speaking of which, and sorry if you're like, hey, where's the guitar workout? We'll get into it. We're also going to just hang out like guitar friends do. I treated myself, and it's going to benefit the channel immensely. I promise. Have you heard of the Jam Stick, the sort of MIDI guitar? Has anyone tried one? They've been around for a little while, and I've always seen them as what they have been up until now, which is like a headless, like a no headstock guitar, and it's a little bit smaller, and it looks slightly from the future, or maybe the 80s, one of those things. And, you know, I'm sure it sounds great and everything for its job of doing like MIDI guitar pickup. So MIDI, if you don't know, that's how, you know, keyboards, and I'm sure you know, it's like those little rectangles inside of like DAWs and music production software, where you can move around and manipulate the notes. They essentially are like little blocks of information that tell the synthesizers or whatever, patch you're using, what sounds to play. And the thing with guitar is that it's all, analog and magnetic and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what I'm talking about, but once you put a MIDI pickup in there, it allows it to translate regular guitar playing into MIDI information. So it could control synths and all that kind of stuff, which is great and fun. And, more on that later as I make new beats and things like that using it. But the real thing is that it's going to allow me to play stuff on a guitar and have it show up on the screen with the dots on the fretboard, the dancing dots. And I'll dial it in and see how it works, but I'm really excited because I think it'll work great. So right now, as I would be doing these things and being like, all right, let's look over here, blah, blah, blah. I think if it goes well, it'll literally be showing up on that. I could even have it be overlaid with the fretboard that I have there. So you could see a static scale. And then as I play like do, 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 and sing along, of course, it will show you what I'm playing as I'm playing it. The future. It might even make me faster at making tabs. Who doesn't love tabs? Some people don't love tabs, but most people love tabs. This is kombucha. By the way, don't get excited. It's kombucha. It's ginger kombucha, and I'm trying to get back on my health kick. So, if you're watching live in the comments, tell me what is from your holiday season, what is something that you indulged in food or drink wise, maybe a little too much, but you don't regret it. I'll go first. I was with friends and family members. We had some good cocktails. We had some gin. That was good. Oh, some Japanese whiskey was really good. Suntory. My brother, I was out in San Diego, and he makes some really good old fashions with that. But food-wise, we had some steaks. We had a lot of meat. There was meat basically at every meal, which was, I love meat. I'm omnivorous, but there's a point at which you're like, boy, maybe I should have veggies this next meal. I'm feeling a little bit like, how long until gout? Gout's one where you eat too much meat and you get a big swollen foot. It happened to somebody I know. He's a friend of mine. He's the lifeguard at the pool where I go. Story time with Tim. Welcome to 2024. The thing about this year is that I think on guitar, we want to, like I was sort of saying, we want to sort of like, I think streamline, because there's so much information. There's so many great teachers. I consider myself one of them. There's a lot of fantastic teachers that live in Nashville and peers of mine that are on YouTube and whatnot. One of them, Eddie Haddad. I got no shame in promoting what Eddie is doing right now. He is doing this great 30-day free course through Stringjoy. So check that out. Just look up Stringjoy. They have this great YouTube channel. They make incredible strings. In fact, these are Stringjoy strings. They're kind of moving, I think, to the top of the list of people's favorite strings to use, especially in this town. Great company, and they have this really smart idea to do like 30 days. It started on January 1st, but obviously you can just jump in at any point. Each day they launch a new video, and Eddie is so good. The videos aren't just sort of like straight into technical stuff. They're actually really kind of intriguing because they're about like some of the articulations and slides and vibrato and some of the subtle things that get overlooked until far too late. So I recommend that. Just look up Stringjoy's YouTube channel, and I'm sure you can, find the link there to sign up. But Eddie's a friend and a great compatriot. I'd love to have him as a part of my show at some point. Hop on. Keith, how are you? Ham. So much ham. That is such a good choice. If you're going to go for something and take it to the limit, I want all the ham. I just quoted a stand-up bit from a guy named Patton Oswalt, who's very funny. You have to check it out. Another thing, go check out Patton Oswalt, I think from his special, His Finest Hour, or something like that from years ago. And it's just a funny deli-based humor. Good deli-based humor jokes. Lots of couch time. Just relax. I know. It's sometimes hard to find time to relax in the holidays. Did any of you find any like sort of therapeutic time with the stress, maybe the fun stress, or maybe this just the stress of being with family? Did you find any time where you could sneak away and play a little bit of guitar as you're sort of like, oh, hi, guitar, it's me. Let's just sort of like be quiet and maybe not so quiet and sort of escape the ruckus out there in the kitchen for a little bit. Because especially growing up as a teenager, guitar was sort of my little sanctuary to go off and play and sort of like escape the madness of whatever was going on, whatever my emo moments were. Johnny B! Oh, Johnny B does know. Yeah, I mean, that one is so good. There's so many good bits from that this could easily slide off the rails and become, or onto the rails and be like just a stand-up comedy nerd out fiesta. I did make the little subtle joke. It's January 6th, everybody. We're going to storm the fretboard today. Keeping it light. Anyway, let's jam along with this track. Why don't we get into the mode of playing some modes? Segue alert. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got blisters on me fingers. Good, Johnny B. I'm glad to hear it. Johnny Bulford is a new member to the GFT, Guitar Friend Tim community, but a longtime member of my heart. He's a great friend, fantastic songwriter and musician, and we're going to get him wherever he wants to go with guitar. He mentioned in our member section that he has been playing with a metronome, which is awesome, and that has helped him with creating guitar parts for all these amazing recordings. He and his wife Heidi, they are a fantastic singer-songwriter duo. Check them out on Twitch, Johnny and Heidi. But whenever they're recording their songs to put out into the world, you know, you got to have your parts. And when you come up with a part, you got to sort of iron it out before you record it. You'd love to get it on the first try, second try, maybe third try. But how many of you have been there where you're like trying to record something and it's like, okay, take 33, and again. So this little loop we got here is D minor. It's the A section that we see up there. So if you got your guitar, grab it, get acquainted, and let's start by just playing these chords in whatever way that you're comfortable with. They do move kind of quickly, right? You could just take your time with it. Any version of a D minor, an F, and a G7. And then here it loops around. So A section up there, D minor, F, G7. Goes around 3 times just like that. And if you're more familiar with these chords, try some different voicings. Now we got the G7. So this D Dorian scale that's on the far fretboard over there on the right of your screen. Notice that the pink dots, that's a familiar friend right there. That's that minor pentatonic. So I'm just playing the pink dots right now, and they all work. They all work so well that you're almost a little bit like thinking, what could we add to that? This is how I look at modes. I look at them like a skeleton frame. And in this case, it's like the minor pentatonic is the frame. In other cases, I might see a major pentatonic as the frame. So again, it all comes back to I can find my root. That's a D. I know that it's a minor tonality, so I can like start by testing out the waters with a D minor pentatonic. And then as I look at the chords, or maybe my ear just sort of hears like there's something a little bit different about this, and spoiler alert, it's the G7. So when it goes to that G7 chord, it brings in this note right here, which on that scale chart is highlighted as a green note. So it's right there, and then an octave lower, it's right there. And you don't need to know all the technical details of what it is. Just know that that comes with the G7, which normally wouldn't necessarily come with the minor pentatonic. So if you add that flavor, particularly when you hit that G7 chord, it's going to line up nicely. So watch this. I'll just play a little bit of the pink notes, and then when it hits that G7, which comes around pretty often, I'll just emphasize that green note, which is the major third of the G7. So here we go. There it is. Pink notes, green note. Pink notes, green note. Now, can we go through this playing the chords? So back to the chords. And really just try to groove. So we're just playing the A section, the white chords up top. Now let's play some noodles. Try to emphasize that green note. We haven't even talked about the yellow note. The yellow note, that scale degree is the 9th. And again, this is just another flavor. The Dorian is basically that minor pentatonic, and it brings in that green note, which is the 6. Now I'm just giving you information, let it kind of bounce wherever it bounces and sort of like save it for later. If you know it already, it's like, yeah, I know it's a 6. That's all good. There's the 6, that green note, and then there's the 9th, that yellow. So join me now and let's play all the notes. So we're gonna start at the very bottom of that scale, and we're gonna play all the pink notes and the yellow and the green note, all in a sequence. So this is what I would call sort of running inventory, just taking stock. Not trying to be musical, we're just trying to like show our hand where, where the dots are. We'll wait for this to go around. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4. Green note, yellow note, green note, yellow note, and then back down, just straight on down. If you're not exactly lined up with me, that's all right. Just keep playing in this sort of steady up and down. Now, after we go down from the top here, let's break that pattern and not run it all the way down, up and down, okay? Let's just stay in one area. Space, let's be musicians again, right? Repeat some things. Here's a little fun candy thing that I'm sure you've heard. Within the minor pentatonic, I'm just hitting pink notes here. I'm just doing that's that root right there, D, on the 4th string, 12th fret, and then 2 frets below it. And then you can just flutter that. And all I'm doing here is I'm changing my pickup, and it sort of creates like a tremolo effect. You've heard that from Hendrix, you heard that from Stevie Ray. So that's a vibe. Let's take a breather and check in. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And yeah. If you're in the chat, there might be a bit of a delay. My apologies if I don't answer something right away. Let's go back to camera number 1. Camera number 2 is the close-up there. Camera number 3 is the GWAD. Camera number 4 is the doggy cam, and we got Tony back there just snarfing away at the last bits of the bully stick. Are there any modes, in the mode to talk about modes, are there any modes where you're like, yeah, I'm actually starting to get to know that one, or maybe you're familiar with them and you're like, I love Mixolydian, I use it all the time. Tell me a little bit about your mojo with modes. This is where if anyone was watching being like, oh, this is kind of interesting, and then like, oh, this is really about guitar. We're really going to nerd out about guitar. We haven't even talked about the year that we have in store. Guitar friends, it's time for beverage number 2. It's coffee. This is coffee number 2. How can you tell that I've had coffee number 1? So you're welcome to tell me your favorite mode. You're also welcome to tell me your favorite mode of creating coffee, if you're a coffee drinker. I've been quite the fan. Yeah, I knew Ricky Stewart would love him some Mixolydian. That feels like your vibe, man. I feel like Mixolydian is in your wheelhouse. Obviously, I've heard it. It sounds great when you make it sing. And I also feel like, maybe Dorian. Maybe this one right here is like, it's the kissing cousin. It really is like Mixolydian on just switching over to the other side of town, getting into the sort of the minor mode and mindset. But it brings in that like... just that flavor is nice. I've been doing the, what's it called? Like the maca press, not the press. It's like sort of espresso style, but the sort of like home game version of it, where you sort of like make the grounds, you put it into that little thing. It's the Italian one, maca, M-O-K-A. It's pretty good. I did French press for a while, and that's pretty strong. It almost makes so much coffee that it's a little bit daunting, because then you're like, well, I have to drink it, and then you're just rocket ship over the moon. Yeah, Johnny, you don't have to use a pick. I mean, a lot of what I've been doing so far on this channel and in my lessons has just gravitated towards electric guitar with a pick. But I'm very excited to bring in more acoustic guitar, more finger style, and the hybrid picking, which is what it sounds like. It's that combination. Like for a long time back in the day, I used to actually play with a thumb pick, and I would sort of thumb pick start off by having like a very pronounced, like a really strong, I don't have one, but at the moment, but I used to have a bunch where like it's very like picky, very pointy, and I would shave it off with like a nail file. And then I would have it, attached to my picking hand. I'd be able to do sort of the Chet Atkins, but with more, punch with that pick. And I could do, and then I could switch to like holding it like a pick, which is kind of cool. I might look into getting back into it. You can hear it's very nice and soft with the thumb, but with that thumb pick, it really makes it punch. I love the Mark Knopfler style. And a lot of that allows you, that flesh sound with the fingertips is really cool and distinctive, and on acoustic it particularly sounds great. So never think that the way that I'm doing it is like the one way to do it or whatever. It's, first of all, mistakes are enjoyable and fun and much welcomed here on the Guitar Friend Tim's channel and in the community. Dare to share your music, dare to make mistakes, and also find your own way that you like. If you like it and it's working for you, that's truly all us other musicians are listening for. And I think we forget that. But like anytime I'm around experienced musicians, the telepathic thing we all have in common is that we're just listening to hear someone who sounds like themselves. And that sounds kind of lofty or sort of open-ended, but that just means they play with some intention, some groove, the things that feel good in music, but it's like we love discovering someone who's doing their thing. And doing their thing, the reason why it's just kind of an open-ended sounding thing is because we don't know exactly what that is until you do it. And that might sound like a inspirational pep talk to put on your coffee mug, but that's why everyone says, be yourself, believe in yourself, is because that's actually the thing that keeps it new. We all got these scales and these chords, and there's more to work on and learn. But the moment we hear somebody doing something original that they really like to do, we like immediately listen differently because we're just sort of like an instant fan. So be a fan of yourself and make sure you find a way to, work that into everything you're learning so that it actually like sticks. And that's part of what I'll sort of talk about as far as your battle plan for this year. Finding ways so that you can notice you're getting better, make it go faster, and really have it form a style that is all your own. Looking at the chat here, tried a French press, didn't like it either. Yeah, I go in and out with it. A long time I didn't even drink coffee, and now I'm clearly on the espresso train. I did not realize that this particular Italian sort of espresso maker that I was telling you about earlier, it makes espresso, and I didn't even know that's like, I was such a novice with coffee. I was drinking it like cups of coffee. It's like, oh, this barely makes any. It's like, because it's basically just tar. It's just sort of like the strongest stuff there is. But yeah, Dorian music to my children who loved every second. That's great. Nice. Oh, nice. Thanks. Thank you, Super Reality. I appreciate that. Plenty more where that came from. These, this is the more kind of expanded, we're hanging out and talking, but when I do these guitar workouts, they're usually just right to the point, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I do them, other than the holidays, pretty much one per every weekday. And they're in the members area. And it's great. It's something that I've really enjoyed. And I think a lot of people have told me that it allows them to just show up. So you might be working on something and chipping away at like learning the whole fretboard or some new sort of big technique that you're diving into. But then to just drop in and be like, all right, today's busy. I don't think I have time to like dive into my like big sort of course I'm working on. But if I just show up for the guitar workout, there's Tim and the dogs to just sort of do a little blitz of something, and it kind of gets your hands on the instrument. So that's kind of the fun of it. In the midst of this particular sort of song we got here, this mini song, switching the buttons there, this B section, again, remember A section, B section, that doesn't mean A chord, B chord. It's just music being yet more confusing with the letters and the numbers. All that is like, it's the first section and the second section. It's a way to differentiate. So the A section we've been doing for a bit. Here's the B section. It goes to major. So you may already know this, but D minor and F major are relative to each other. So this would be like, like the chorus of the song where it gets sort of happier. And it'll just keep looping. So let's play along with this a bit if you got your guitar. These are all major chords. I wrote A major just to specify because often you would find that being an A minor, but here it's going to be major, B flat, and then down to a G7, and then up to an A7, goes a little bit faster. So this section would be a great place to kind of just practice your triads. And you can start by just going to your most familiar shapes. So I'm just taking this same, major bar chord shape and moving it around. So you can start right there, because these kind of go by a little bit faster than typical exercises. So F, you maybe play the top 3 strings. So you got to be able to see this bar chord and then just play a piece of it. So we're just kind of going linear here, B flat. Now we've got this quicker turnaround. And for that G7 and the A7, I give you permission, if you're not quite as quick to find the 7 chords, those dominant 7 chords, you can just play the major triads. For the most part, that's going to work. Sometimes we get a little confused by the 7 chords, like when and how do we use them? Like, generally speaking, 7 chords, and like whether it's major 7 or minor 7, they're an extension. So a regular triad, and this is sort of, let some of this theory just sort of wash over you. If you got it, great. If this is new information, just sort of take some of this, with a grain of salt, that it'll add up as we go. But basically, if I've got like a G major chord here, a triad, as we describe it, it's not just any 3 strings from that bar chord. It's particularly the 3 notes of the triad. So what makes a G major in its simplest form is a root, which would be a G. The third, in this case a major third, that's going to be a B, and then the 5th, which is a D. So 1, 3, 5, the root, the third, and the 5th make a triad. So for the first 3 strings of this particular bar chord, yeah, it's a triad. It's a root, it's a 5th, and it's a 3rd. Great, that's like our boom, trifecta, got it. For the next 3 strings, the 2, 3, and the 4, it's a different combination, but we still get that same, we collected all 3. We've got the root, we've got the 3rd, and we've got the 5th. And we luck out again, and we go down to the next string set. So now we've got strings 3, 4, and 5. We've got the 3rd, we've got the root, and we've got the 5th. So hopefully you get the idea that each one of these times we're getting a 1, a 3, a 5, a root, a 3rd, and a 5th. But if we go down to the lowest 3 strings, that makes what we might know as like a power chord. And it has a particular sound, right? It sounds a little more kind of like rock or neutral because it has 2 roots, 1/5, and it doesn't have a 3rd. What makes a triad really kind of show its cards is to show whether it has a major or minor 3rd. In this case, there is no 3rd just because of the way this chord fingering is shaped. So it's just going to be, if those low 3 strings are just going to be root, 5th, root, which is just to say that as you get into learning the triads and everywhere they go, that's why on that chart over there, that F major, if we go down here, you can see that bar chord that we know and love, but there's that pink note on the 6th string that's kind of hanging out what looks randomly up there. The reason that's there is to show you where that major 3rd would be. So that major 3rd gives us the major 3rd, the 5th, and the root. And like I said, that gives us the 3 that we need to have a triad. And that's like a low, kind of very rich sounding triad, which might work well in all kinds of different cases. Maybe less so over a track here where there's bass and other instruments, but it's really good to be able to find all those triads. And that can just be down the line. You can start by focusing on the top 3 strings, the next 3 strings down, because those are really useful and they're kind of the easiest to start to see. But knowing where that 3rd is gives you access to this very familiar kind of spot to play fills. So you can see how sometimes this stuff seems like, oh, well, when would I need that? That's sort of a weird shape, but actually just seeing where that pink dot would be up on the 6th string gives you this sort of like almost trapdoor into like the Hendrix fill. And you can see that same thing is happening up here where those blue dots are. You can see where there's that white note, that F on the 5th string, 8th fret. That's the root, that's the F. So, oh, there's that classic, bar chord that looks like an open A. But we've got this random blue note up here. Well, it's the same thing, just an octave higher. So it's that root and then the major 3rd. Same thing that's really, really useful. Right? So you might find yourself using these triads the most, but this little shape that gets you to that major 3rd sort of sends you into this area where you can play some fills. Now, as we play this B section again, how many times can you quickly find that major chord, like F, and then it goes to A major, then B flat. Find yourself to that new chord, and then find triads you can play with. This last time we went linearly, but what if you're able to stay in kind of one spot and just ask yourself, where is the nearest option to play the next chord? So if I've got an F and I'm down here, my nearest option to play an A would be right there. Good old-fashioned open A. And then the nearest option for the B flat would be right next to it. Then maybe you go down to this G7, go back to that A7. You want to have options. That's the idea. When you get to a decision point, you want to be like, oh, I could go up here because it might sound cool to go higher, or I could go lower because I feel like it. Versus, oh my God, the chords are coming at me so fast. Like, just give me any F or any A. Like, we all know that feeling where when you're sweating bullets, just grab the nearest solution to the problem. So all of that is to say, if you find yourself hitting a point where you're like, oh boy, I just got to grab the next chord, do that. Grab the simple one that you've got, at quickest at your disposal. And then as you get more familiar with testing that edge of like, well, actually, I feel pretty good about finding that A. What if I tried? Kind of creates this interesting, what we call voice leading, where you're not always moving, to the same shape, but in a different spot. That's one option. But maybe the next option is like, oh, what if I just sort of see if I can stay in one area? You get these really kind of cool things that become what guitar parts are, which is like they sort of stay, not always stay, but they sort of create some kind of like lyrical quality to it. Let's try it in context. Are you ready? We're going to play this B section again for a little bit. I'll show you the chords, and we'll use it just as, I got all these buttons. I got this new controller thing, and you can't really see it, but it looks like a wacky PlayStation controller that I can automate or whatever. I can map it out, and I have not yet learned it or mapped it out. So apologies for all the wrong buttons. Here's F. Okay, A major. So just try to find the chord and maybe ask yourself, is there another version of that chord, another place on the neck where you can grab it? You can use this triads chart. So let's say if I start up on this green version of F, then right where I am, there's that familiar piece of that A. That's kind of cool. Maybe move up a half step for that one. And then, that's cool, right? Can I keep going up? That's that F, those blue dots. Now I'm playing an inversion, another triad for that A. Okay, we're gonna play this now as like a song. I know, imagine that. Like a song. We're gonna play the A section and then the B section. What I want you to do is when we play that A section, that's the part that is kind of the D minor. I want you to play some chords. Then I want you to mess around with the Dorian mode. So your job is to kind of be like the cool sort of fill and solo guitarist right there. You're sort of a little bit supposed to play some of those lead lines, but be ready for the change, because the moment that it switches to the B section, and I'll announce it, go to the chords, make that your thing. Don't worry about trying to figure out what do I play over this for some tasty lines. Just for today, focus on finding those chords and maybe playing with triads that are nearby. Okay? Let's see this. And I don't have a count in for this. We're just going to do it. We're going to start on the A section with the D minor. Here we go. Roughly speaking, 1, 2, 3, D minor. So D minor, F, G7. D minor, F, G7. Now we got this G7, G7, F. We'll repeat that again. Let's play some scale stuff. So don't play all the way up and down. Try to just limit yourself. Now we're moving on to the F. Here we go, F major chord. major, B flat, G7, A7, and repeat, F, A major, B flat, G7, A7. Okay, back to the A section, but we're going to synth mode. Oh yeah, that's right. Putting some reverb on it. Maybe some delay. We'll go around again. D, Dorian. Okay, B section, here's F major. A major. It's a bit like Creep, right? B flat. G. Johnny's all over it, he knows. And repeat. F major. It's all you. Let's go, guitar friend. A major. Take it across the finish line. You're not a creep. You're not a weirdo. Although you are here. I'm just gonna make it a little bit debatable. And let's finish on a D minor. Spooky, mysterious, lovely, great job. Kudos. I need to get some applause on cue. I can tell you're doing great. I can tell you're absorbing as much as you can in this sitting, and whatever isn't sticking, don't worry about it. Just float down the river. There's always more. There's always another day. Let's look at the chat a bit. Again, sorry if I'm late to the party with any of these comments, but let me know, how are you doing out there? And if you didn't hear me ask earlier, what are you focused on for this year? Like, what is a specific guitar goal, an area of your playing? It could be anything. You don't have to say the thing that you think you're supposed to know. What do you kind of like? Is there an artist or a band who you want to learn more of their songs? Is there like a really specific technique that you're going to try to hone in on? And then I think part two to that question is, how are you going to measure it? How are you going to keep track of it? Obviously, I'm a guy who's, teaching guitar online. So there's times, and I'm new to this, I've only been doing this about 6 months. So there's times where I feel like, oh my gosh, am I the salesy guy? It's like, well, at some point I really want people to just really get better and have fun. So I'm going to walk through my thinking of how, if I were learning guitar like from scratch in this year, and I am learning guitar, so this does apply to me, what my mindset would be to learn as fast as possible. And yes, of course, I'm selling courses, and I'm even giving away a free course. So if you're interested in learning more of what it's like to learn with me, it's a lot like this, frankly, just sort of hanging out, a little bit goofy, a little bit tasty. You never know what you're going to get. But I have a 5-day free course, and it's like the 5-day skills challenge. That's what I'm calling it. The link, I believe, is in the description. Each day you get a bite-sized lesson. I literally go over modes, triads. What else? I go over, how to start soloing. Like if all this sort of seems new to you, it's like how to find the roots. An anchor of all this is just how to find the root names, which we sometimes overlook, where it's just being able to automatically be like, boom, B flat, G, whatever it is, like, so you can find your way into the chord, the scale. I go over all that over 5 days, and it's really great. 5-day skills challenge, check that out. And then the courses right now, there's a discount going on the courses in the community. We have this really great app. It works on mobile and desktop. I believe Android, they're going to have the dark mode coming, but I really appreciate that you can switch for light or dark mode, because I like resting my eyes and not having it like glaring at me. So they have that for iPhone. It's called Mighty Network. And within there, we've got all the courses, the community, and then all these guitar workouts. And like I said, they're normally more to the point. But we're rambling today. Let's ramble on into 2024. The goal is to improve. I like that, Matt. Right there, the goal is to improve. You got to focus on getting better. How are you? I'm curious. How are you going to keep track of that? because I know how it is myself. Whenever people ask, well, what's your resolution for this year? It's like, well, I got lots of hopes and dreams, and I sometimes forget to circle back and be like, oh yeah, it's February. What did I say I was going to do? And I would love to sort of be your personal trainer and sort of help people sort of stay accountable in a very fun, encouraging kind of way. Recognizing interval jumps for lead and melody lines from DJ. I like that. Yeah, intervals is a big thing. Yeah, like for example, like let's say we're in this D minor shape here. Gotta switch my buttons. Just as a little sort of mini talk on how much I love intervals. Like when I look at this minor pentatonic, I see it as like a cast of characters. And by characters, I mean each one of these intervals, each one of these like degrees of the scale has a certain personality to me. So the roots are very sort of grounding. Roots being like the 1 degree of the scale. And that's like that's why that root, that D, is such a great way to sort of make it sing. You can bend up to it. That's kind of like the home note, right? But whenever I'm grounded in that key, I look up there and I sort of think, well, that flat 7 has a kind of quality to it. Sort of has a personality. Same with, and on down the line. The minor third has a sort of, it kind of wants to go back down to the root. That has helped me so much to get acquainted with each one of these degrees and intervals as if it's a flavor, so that when I hear it, I can recognize it. Those are tenths. That's basically like a spaced out version of a third. And again, if this isn't making sense, don't worry about it. It's more just about the idea that gradually I built up this connection to these notes. So yes, I see the scale shape, but mostly I'm looking at it in terms of almost like colors, to be like, oh, the 5th feels like this, the 9th feels like that. And that's why I literally lit up the scale chart with those green and yellow notes. They introduce new flavors. Sometimes the metaphor of like, they bring in a splash of like, cayenne pepper or whatever. I love hot sauce, maybe too much. So that's usually a metaphor for me. 5 fun days you'll never forget. Thanks, Tim Taylor. I should have used that as a slogan, as a tagline. Improve my rhythm and chord transitions. Lead type fills. Yes. Integrate triads. Yes, Wade. Absolutely. That to me is like really the blending. A lot of where I try to take the triads when we work on that, or the scales, try to take it to a point where like, oh, maybe they just start combining. And that's where I want you to be, is find yourself working on like triads, being diligent and getting them under your fingers, scales. And then one day you're just like, we're like, whoa, what was that? I kind of just sort of, and maybe you'll start to hear fills that you'll suddenly realize, oh, that's as simple as just taking a scale shape and a triad shape and mashing them together. So you'll hear us guitar teachers online sort of get crazy about triads because they're fun in and of themselves. They sound like guitar parts. For example, here's a triad-based guitar part. Can you name this? Does anyone else go with me on that ride? Do you know this song? And for bonus points, can you not only name that song usually gets misidentified because people think, oh, it's ba ba ba, but the actual title of it is like more poetic. It's like, I'm so excited. I was such a nerd for Spin Doctors in my adolescence. The first 2 guitar books I had were Spin Doctors and Creedence Clearwater Revival. So it was like, that's anyway. Yeah, Creedence was big. Yeah, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of. Here's another variation from that same type of lick, more classic rock. So it's like, I played it all wrong. Here we go. Johnny, when I think about you, I think about chords. Hey, yeah. You guys are a fun time, fun hang. What else we got? Touch, dynamic, space. Yes, super reality. I love that. I love your profile name too. I really want us to just take these techniques and then use what we already know and love about music. which again, I'm not afraid to talk in the poetic sense of just like, what makes us feel something. It is usually the notes we don't play. It's the anticipation of what the player is going to do next that creates all this fun air around it. And that takes basically like kind of having your sort of like your vegetables, as I say, where you study your stuff so that you can decide to not play it. And that's where I'm going to talk now in this sort of very quickly thrown together slideshow. This is the most it's a good looking slideshow in the sense that I use Apple Keynote. It's got a good background, decent fonts, but there's no graphics or anything. I'm basically just going to be walking through it and talking and reading it, but it is helpful. And I want you to let me know if there's anything you get out of this as we dive into it. I'll look at the comments again real quick. That was great, Matt. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better. He's saying, his kids show up occasionally to tell me if I've improved or not. And yeah, boy, the built-in peanut gallery. And isn't it great? Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, especially when kids, and I've got nephews, and like when they just sort of give you the straight talk. They're not trying to pump you up. They're just like, check. Sometimes the audio is cutting out. But yeah, like it's good when you have a sounding board, someone who knows you and they're rooting for you, but they're also going to let you know, like, I always feel like within the music and recording world, if the recording engineer, if you're working on a song and the recording engineer who might just be there, like, just doing their thing and like making all the knobs and everything go where they should, if they turn around, they're like, I actually really like this one. It's like, whoa, they don't just give out those compliments. So if you get even the slightest begrudging, like, hey, Dad, that sounds pretty good. It's like, that means you've actually broken through the barrier of silence of like, oh, there he goes again playing. And it's like, that actually sounds like something I want to hear again. Ricky, love to be able to do more grooves, mixing triads and fills like that. Yeah, Ricky, you're on your way. My man, I think we're going to dive more into like some of the right-hand stuff that I know that you've been enjoying in the courses and community, where if you get this control of, then I swear we're going to look at this awesomely boring slideshow. If you get more control of muting, and this goes for everyone, obviously, like a lot of times we think muting is like palm muting, and that's true. That's like, whatever, like having it be sort of real sort of like punchy. You have a bit of the side of your palm there resting literally on it. So you're half muting. It's like if you have your palm completely off, it's like ringing like that. If you have it resting down, it's more punchy like that. But when we get into these things where we have, let's say like a triad, like if this is like an A major triad, what I'm doing to make it stop there real quick, and there's reverb on it, which creates a nice sort of ambient tail, is left hand muting. So the left hand is that I'm squeezing. If I were to squeeze and just keep squeezing, this one is much more like the pedal on a piano, where the moment that I let off the pressure, but I keep my hand where it is, I've got this stopping point. And when you can get familiar with how you can combine the different ways to mute with your right hand and left hand, then you've got these really percussive qualities that can be. And it's up to you then when you get comfortable with that, like how much or little do you want to make it sort of punch or ring out? And then you start to notice the subtleties in great bass players, especially because bass players are so confident with knowing when their note is going to stop. And actually the stopping of the note needs to be in groove as much as the downbeat of the note. So we think of like, we've got to try to hit the note on time, but you'll notice bass players, if they decide to, can make it stop right when the snare hits. All these things where you get more into the nerdiness of it with like, that's why it feels so good. That's why the guitar part that goes with that really blends in, becomes much more about sticking with your fellow players. And that's enormous in my book. That's where a lot of us musicians go after we're like, I think I know enough notes. I don't actually want to be a complete shredder. I'd rather just groove. So amen to that. Let's look at this year we have ahead of us. Oh my gosh. I got the color scheme. There's that guy in the hat. I'm just going to sort of go through this. Just sort of ride with me, if you would, on this silly little slideshow, because I genuinely think there's a lot in here that I did some thinking about, and I break it down into basically 3 areas you can divide your time. So often people are wondering, how do I practice? What should I focus on? Where should I put my time? And there's no one way to answer that, because really you want to be following your inspiration. And truly, if you're coming back to the instrument to play, as I've said, my friend, the piano player, Dylan, who's just an amazing friend of mine, He said, when I'm teaching students on piano how to play, it's like all you got to do is reach that point where you want to come back to the instrument more than you don't. And that sounds obvious enough, but sometimes we just drift away and we're a little bit shy to come back to the guitar because we're afraid that we're going to, maybe have too many cobwebs or whatever. So momentum is everything. But let's talk about this new year, this 2024. You got a fresh start on it. So you've promised yourself you're going to get back into playing more guitar this year. I know, I'm sorry if this is cheesy. Let's just fly through it. It's fun. But just as excited as you are right now to restart your guitar progress, you're secretly worried about repeating the same old practice routines and inevitably just getting bored and re-quitting. So as I read this, if you're feeling any of this, go ahead and drop a guitar emoji or just drop whatever emoji reaction feels like it's speaking to you. Because I know how this feels when it's like, all right, I'm going to buckle down, I'm going to work harder. But deep down, I'm like, but am I going to get distracted? And is that going to throw me off? Is that going to kind of put me back to square one? You are not alone. Hence why I'm saying all this. Unfortunately, most modern self-taught guitarists these days feel pretty alone. It's the double-edged sword of learning anything on YouTube. The abundance of free information, but overwhelm and isolation are waiting for us pretty much at every turn. So we're constantly doubting whether or not we're even practicing the right things. Does this sound familiar? Let me know. I genuinely want you to break the cycle. I want this year to be different for you. And I have a simple practice recipe. I'm not selling anything, by the way. Yes, I have courses. Yes, I have a free course. But in this talk, I really want you to try to cut through this slideshow aspect of it and just hear me out. So these are the 3 areas I want you to divide your time and energy. I'm kind of calling it the power trio plan of attack. Maybe I should have called the stream that. But we all know that practice isn't the only thing that floats our boat. So this is like kind of the performance strategy that I'm going to talk about at the end, where it's like what I'm calling them are like 2 accelerator bonuses, where it's like we're going to cover 3 areas to divide your time, and then these 2 things that are going to make it all go faster. Some days you have hours to jam and practice. Most days you don't. But instead of noodling for 10 minutes and feeling like you wasted your time, do this. Split your practice into 3 key areas. And this will make sure you hit all the things that you need to touch on, even if you do have a smaller slice of time. And if you have more time, then you can split it up equally into these 3 areas. So let's imagine you only have 15 minutes to practice. Even then, I'll show you how to maximize. Misspelled that. I don't know. Clearly, it's telling me to maximize. It doesn't matter. Maybe I spelled it the British way. Yeah, I spelled it the British way. So take that. You're going to maximize your time and extinguish any excuses. Number 1, drills and exercises. Sounds boring, but we all know we're always working on technical stuff where we're trying to learn a new scale, learn a new shape, whether it's dexterity and stuff like that. And I want you to get that in. This is where you're getting in that new information. A lot of people are crazy about, rightfully so, learning the whole fretboard and stuff like that. And that could be a lot of information. This will help you chip away at it. So you're doing a little bit more each day when you're learning your scale shapes, digesting the new information with a metronome. Johnny Bulford knows that. Lock into a groove. You warm up your hands, transition your mind from busy, regular life stuff, and just start to feel the actual guitar underneath your hands. And the problem this addresses is that feeling that we're like stagnant or stale, like we're not like picking up any new stuff, like we're falling behind. It's good to get that out of the way first, and just sort of get that information kind of flowing into your brains and connecting with your fingertips. Area 2, noodle and jam. Yeah, I said noodle. And I want you to jam. Take it out for a spin. That's equivalent to when I say running inventory. Use jam tracks and loops and just sort of kick the tires. Give yourself time to play a bunch of mistakes. Repeat new information. Just get it into your head, into your hands, so that it's actually starting to become part of your muscle memory. And then once it gets into your reflexes and the musical instincts, you've sort of got it. It becomes like it's going to stay not just in your flash memory. You're going to stay more permanently. Yeah, and the problem it solves is that when you don't have the new information down cold, you don't feel ready to test it out in a live setting or in a playing for real moment. So we tend to freeze up, and we have one way of finding it. We sort of practice it a bit, but the moment someone like needs us to play D Dorian, we're fishing for it. So we kind of like all or nothing. So once you take it more through the reps, you're going to be feeling like, okay, I got this. It's not this like new exotic piece of information. But be careful not to overstay in this phase. This is where a lot of players exclusively spend their time. They just jam over jam tracks, they noodle, and they kind of tell themselves in the back of their mind like, yeah, I'm doing it, I'm working on the new thing. but they don't bring in new information. So they just sort of run the same shapes that they think they're getting better at, but actually they're just grooving into the same sort of brain pathways of just like, oh, I can play everything in G and everything in E, but you've got to move it around and test yourself, and that's where this next phase comes into it. This is crucial. Play real song structures. And I say structures because I don't even need you to play like an entire song. It's the structures, the pieces and parts of a song that they change, from a verse to a chorus, and all these areas within the structure of a song that ask us to transition from rhythm to lead to a fill part to an intro. When the band builds up for a big chorus and then it strips back down and the solo starts, these are moments that the music actually is music and it breathes, and it's what we enjoy about listening to music. So you've got to take yourself through those kind of checkpoints and be ready to play your role, even if you're simulating that with a jam track. Problem this addresses: the tunnel vision of the bedroom practitioner, which is a lot of us these days. If we play alone, even with jam tracks and videos and all that, we're not around other people, and it's more likely that we're going to avoid those moments when the music changes in feel and tempo and harmony and key changes and all that kind of stuff. We get that sort of fear that we can't really express what we're doing in real time. We have these sort of things we've perfected in the laboratory, but when you put it into a song, you've got to think on your feet, you got to move along with it, and you also got to sort of forgive mistakes where it's like, well, I screwed up that chorus, on to the next section of the song. And that's really good to sort of rinse away any of the stuff that you're getting too maybe touchy about. This is the killer combo, the K's. Practice time, power trio, drills, exercises. That could be the first couple minutes where you just sort of get yourself warmed up and you do some of the vegetables. The noodle and the jam comes next. We've all got jam tracks, a looper, any sort of stuff that gets you kind of like just expressing freely with this new information, sort of like, dribble the basketball. And then part 3, play real song structures. Before I dive into these bonus ideas, are you feeling this? Let me know in the chat. I should have had like a lo-fi beat or something looping behind that. I know it's like the most boring slideshow that's ever existed, but let's check out beverage number 3. It's just classic H2O. This is your reminder. This is brought to you by our sponsor, water. Oh yeah. In fact, let's just sort of like play what we got. Oh yeah, little tambourine. That's nice. Real nice. The metaphor, the analogy with this stuff that I'm talking about. Anybody out there play golf? Drop a golfing related emoji in there if you play golf. Even if you don't, I'm sure you've gone to the driving range and sort of messed around. If a golfer goes to the driving range, they can just get an entire bucket of 100 balls or more, whatever, and they could just hit drives. They could just bring out their longest hitting club and just hit 100 drives in a row. And when they do that, if they're trying to get better at it, and not just like working out their anger and putting the faces of people that anyway, not that I know, but if you're just hitting a lot of drives, you can refine it one after another, and there's value to that. But think of any golf hole. Even if you don't play golf, it's like, oh, every time I've ever seen a golfer, they hit a long shot. The very next shot, they have to switch clubs and hit an entirely different shot. It might be a drive. Hopefully your next shot is an iron. Maybe you're chipping, then you're putting. These are all totally different, like muscle memory skill sets. And each one of them needs to be practiced kind of individually and made strong so that when you put them all in a sequence, you're getting a pretty good, if not your best, drive, chip, putt in a sequence. And that's exactly what happens when a song comes along and it needs us to open up with a really loud sort of like aggressive riff, and then we have to pull back and play really tasty. You get the idea. So being able to change and switch between these techniques that you're working on is where it all comes together. That's the most satisfying part, and it's sort of the thing that we sort of put off because we feel like, yeah, I got it. Nah, I got it. No, I totally got it. Look at me. I'm ripping these drives. I'm ripping these riffs. And then it's like, okay, now I need you to play quiet. I don't know how to do that. It's like, yeah, you do. You just forgot to put it right after the loud part. Do you dig it? Solo for show, rhythm for dough. Exactly. It's like the drive for show, putt for dough. Yeah, okay, DJ plays golf. You know the idea. It really is kind of why you'll find, just like in golf, some people really end up loving sort of the subtle aspects of like the chipping game. I have a little par 3. Now I'm talking golf. Par 3 nearby where I go there and I just take one club, like just a a 9-iron and a putter or whatever. And it's fun to just sort of hone in on one area like that. Of course, I can't drive. I hit banana balls off into the woods, but that is my fate in life. I love it. And look for those analogies in life, whether it's with language or cooking or sports or whatever. They come in handy when you're dealing with guitar. All right, tambourine man. I want to show you these last two ideas, and they are important. With all these sort of like strategies for practicing, I think there's two ideas that I want you to keep in mind as far as like, okay, well, where's all this going? Like, how do I know if I'm getting better? Accelerator number 1. Make momentum the most important thing. It's what I keep saying. Like, make sure you're just showing up. So even if you're just tracking how often you're showing up to the guitar and not beating yourself up if it's 10 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever it is, you show up to practice every day. You're keeping a promise to yourself, and that keeps your mind guilt-free. The guilt-free guitarist is the happy guitarist. The happy guitarist is the improving guitarist. And the improving guitarist is what we all want to hear. And I think that's what I'm hearing in the comments is that, you guys want to improve. You want to like notice that you're on the right track. And that feeling of progress is actually what's fun. It's what gives you the sort of goosebumps of like, yeah, man, I'm on my way. And that feeling of being on your way, it is that kind of journey versus destination thing that is really good. So if you were to, for a while, just decide like, I'm going to show up. And even if it's not pretty, even if I'm going around, it feels like I'm going around circles, I'm going to show up. That would be more important than even any of the other details that I've said so far. Lastly, this is the super turbo secret weapon. Dare to share. I say this in my community with my members, and I'm trying to find more ways all the time to encourage people to share what they're working on. Sorry, this slide is all wacky. It's right there. Accelerator number 2. Look at that. Dare to share. This could be playing an open mic. This could be playing a good old-fashioned live gig. Play a concert for your collection of Beanie Babies. I know you got them. Hit record on a voice memo on your phone. Listen back to it later. That makes a huge difference. I would also, side note on that, record yourself playing, do something else for a while, and then listen to it later when you're like, cleaning the house or driving somewhere, and just let yourself be a pure listener of your playing and don't overanalyze it, because that's how music actually gets to people, is when they're doing other things. Send a video of yourself playing this, something you've worked on, to a friend. The power of sending a song to someone is amazing. And it gets you, just sort of thinking about what music can do. Send a silly cover song for someone's birthday. You can't lose. They're going to love it. Like Mistakes and All, they'll love it. And they'll probably be like, hey, that's amazing. I know you just sent me happy birthday, but that sounded great. Invite some friends over to jam. The classic, post a video on social media. It's not as scary as you think. And by all means, post a video in the Guitar Friend Tim community. See what I did there? We have an amazing members area that is supportive and inspiring. And, don't take my word for it, but take some of my word for it. If you're interested, we're running a sale for the next couple of days. It's the New Year's special, and it's awesome. $24 off the annual membership. See, 2024. That's what we're all about. I want you to check it out. And until January 8th, I think just a couple more days at midnight, we'll go back to the regular prices. We're expanding. We're adding more courses. We're doing the workouts, and it's a lot of fun. And I really do appreciate you guys being here. Hit me up with any questions now. Let's hang for a little bit. Let's talk shop. Tell me more about what you want to know about, if I can help right now, or what you're working on. And that might give me ideas for stuff that I can incorporate into the next wave of goody goods as we loop over this synth version of Section A. Woo! So serious. Oh yeah. D Dorian. Oh, Ricky. Happy to see that. Play an open mic. I love it. There is something so valuable. Just turn down the track to getting the good butterflies, to getting good nervous. And that's what I mean, is like, even if you're just hitting record on your phone, it's just you and your phone, that sort of like, oh man, here we go, this one's for keeps. That's the stuff. That's the secret sauce. And if there's anything, I will say, if there's anything that us experienced pros, and sometimes I feel like an imposter saying that, but I've earned my stripes. What we forget that we did is that we just had so many moments where we were kind of nervous and kind of excited. And that took everything into warp speed. So it's almost like it dissolves away where you're like, you know what, I can't exactly remember the day that I mastered triads. All I know is that I was on a session and someone needed me to play this part, and I was sweating bullets, and I studied hard the night before, and I pulled it off. And you just leap forward because you have a reason. So look for those things. You might be working on a song where you're like, I gotta learn how to play that song, and see if you can put that, you know, that focus in the midst of like, well, I want to learn this technique, I want to learn this song, and then you get the best of both worlds where you get, you know, triads, sure, but you've got this thing that you can play and, you know, keep. It's a takeaway, right? Oh, Tim Taylor, you live in the coldest place on earth. The temperatures that you've dropped in here, the -32, is just unbearable. I don't even know if guitars are safe. I don't even know if Johnny Bulford, he has a carbon fiber guitar. Those are the ones that they show outdoors. Look, we left it out overnight in the winter. I think that one would explode. But whatever you can do to stay warm, I'd say gather around the fire, invite the wolves and the polar bears, and just play them a song. Let's see. Thought maybe for some GWAT ideas, you could have a theme of the week. Yes. Different guitarists. I love that idea. In fact, that's kind of where my head is at. Ooh, I'm getting sort of burping. But yes, having a theme of the week is a great idea, and centering it around a style of a player, or maybe a piece of a song they do, kind of creating a sort of a touch point is exactly where my head is at. So we'll have a wave of stuff that we can sort of build from one to the next. Yeah. See, I love playing simple things. We'll get into some more effects too as we get into the new year. For what it's worth, right now I'm using a Dualist, the double overdrive from Kingtone, amazing company. Adding a bit of that. And then the delay is coming from Ableton Live. How many of you are using DAWs, are using Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools? I used to use Pro Tools a lot back in the day, and then it got, I think, sort of left in the dust by Logic, and now I'm using Ableton a lot. Here's another thing that I've spent way too much time working on, and I still try different techniques for it. But you ever wonder how people move from picking and then they suddenly, where'd the pick go? And then the pick is back? In fact, I'll do it with a white pick so you can kind of see it a little bit better. It is not a perfect science, but through the years, like I said, with the thumb pick, and then I learned the hybrid picking where you sort of hold on to it, where it's that crazy kind of combo. Just picking. And you'll see people, like, sometimes they hold it right there. Chris Buck is fantastic, and he does this. I think he actually, I don't know, sometimes people hold it right there. They sort of squeeze it while they're, before you know it, they have it right there. I think a little while ago I saw Robin Ford doing that. And that's kind of where I'm at these days, where when I want to just do fingerstyle, it kind of limits this. Obviously, you got to hold those together. And then it's a little bit easier to do that move. Go all Tim Henson on us, yeah. Yeah, Tim Henson is just, we know he's a beast. I have no idea how he does what he does. For the most part, I'm one of those like older guitarists where I'm like, well, you know, kids these days can do that apparently. More power to you. This is a Chris Buck riff. I'll show this to you that I really enjoy. I definitely slowed down the video to, it's not a fast lick. It's a nice singing lick. So let's say we're in this D, because we are. I'll turn off the delay. What I want you to be able to do, by the way, is not only have this classic box one, but I want you to get more familiar with using the one that is below, and by below I mean down that way. So it's that shape. I don't know what number of shape it would be. And then here's the box one. But if you're in this spot right here, bending that up, but then doing kind of, that one's really fun. So it's like a big bend up, and then you slide down as you release the bend. And then this is kind of that D minor shape down there. Noodlesburg. Let's do it in 2024. Give me one last emoji if you got time for it. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you come join us in the Guitar Friend Tim community. You can check out what it's like to learn with me with the 5-day free course. Links are in the description below. Be good to yourself, have fun, listen to music that inspires you, inspire other people, share it, dare it. You got this. It's gonna be not just a good year, a great year. Great work, everybody. Great work, Tony. Great work, Lolly. They're asleep. It's okay. Okay. All right. That's good enough. That'll do. Thanks, everybody.